I stared at my phone, rereading the text from Dad for the 5th time. Don't come to Christmas this year. Your brother is bringing his girlfriend, and she's a VP at a tech company. We don't want you making things awkward with your situation. My situation. That's what they called my life now. I'd been unemployed for 6 months after my marketing firm downsized. Meanwhile, my younger brother Tyler was dating someone successful, and suddenly, I wasn't good enough for the family Christmas party anymore. The text sat on my screen like a slap across the face. I kept thinking there had to be some mistake, some misunderstanding. This was my family. These were the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. But as I sat there in my apartment, the winter sunlight streaming through the windows, feeling cold and distant, I realized this had been building for months. Growing up, I was always the responsible one. The eldest daughter who did everything right. I put myself through college working 2 jobs, one as a barista during the day, and another as a restaurant server at night. I remember studying in my car between shifts, surviving on coffee and determination. I graduated with honors, a degree in marketing and communications, and I was so proud. My parents came to the graduation, took photos, but I remember Dad checking his watch during the ceremony. Tyler had a basketball game that afternoon. Tyler, my younger brother by 3 years, he was always the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Average grades? That was fine. He was creative. Job hopping every 8 months? He was finding himself. Never paid back the $5,000 he borrowed from me 4 years ago? Well, I made more money than him. So why did it matter? I built a solid career in marketing. 12 years of hard work, climbing from an assistant position to senior marketing manager. I developed campaigns that won awards. I mentored junior staff. I was good at what I was doing. Really good. When my company downsized in June, it wasn't about performance. They cut 3 entire departments due to a merger. I got a decent severance package and unemployment benefits. I had savings. I wasn't desperate. What I was doing was being strategic. After 12 years of grinding, of sacrificing weekends and personal time, I was burned out. The severance gave me a cushion to really think about what I wanted next. I turned down 2 positions because they felt like more of the same exhaustion with different company names. I was prioritizing my mental health, my future, my growth. But my parents didn't see it that way. Thanksgiving had been the turning point. I should have seen this coming then. We gathered at my parents' house in the suburbs, the same house I grew up in, with its familiar cream-colored walls and family photos lining the hallway. Tyler arrived late, as usual, with this huge grin on his face. "Everyone, I want you to meet Jessica," he announced, and in walked this polished woman in designer clothes, her smile bright and confident. Dad's eyes literally lit up. I hadn't seen him look at anyone like that in years, maybe ever. "Jessica, Tyler told us you work in tech." "Yes, I'm a VP of product development at Next Tech Solutions," she said, and I watched my mother's face transform into pure delight. For the next 2 hours, every conversation revolved around Jessica, her salary, her position, her connections in the industry, her insights on market trends. Mom asked her about stock options. Dad wanted to know about her career trajectory. Tyler sat there, beaming like he'd won the lottery. And maybe, in their eyes, he had. I tried to contribute to the conversation. I mentioned a promising interview I had the week before with a startup that was doing innovative work in sustainable marketing. Dad literally held up his hand to stop me mid-sentence. "That's nice, America. Jessica, tell us more about how someone gets to VP level by 26. "That's remarkable." I felt something crack inside my chest. I was 32 years old, and I was being dismissed like a child interrupting adult conversation. The rest of Thanksgiving was more of the same. Every time I spoke, I was talked over or ignored. Tyler and Jessica became the center of the universe. When we sat down to dinner, Mom had actually rearranged the seating so Jessica was next to Dad at the head of the table. I ended up at the far end, next to my 10-year-old cousin, who spent the entire meal playing games on his tablet. After Thanksgiving, I noticed the family group chat getting quieter. Well, quieter for me. I'd send messages asking how everyone was doing, sharing articles I thought Mom would find interesting, trying to stay connected. My messages would sit there, unread or ignored, but Tyler's updates got immediate responses. Going to dinner with Jess tonight at that new French place downtown. 12 responses. Heart emojis from Mom. That's my boy. From Dad. Jessica has such good taste. From 3 different aunts. I told myself it was fine. I was being sensitive. They were just excited about Tyler's new relationship. It would balance out eventually. It didn't balance out. My unemployment became this shameful secret they didn't want to acknowledge. In early December, I ran into my mom's friend Patricia at the grocery store. She asked how I was doing, and I gave her an honest update that I was between positions and being selective about my next move. The next day, Mom called me, and her voice was tight with anger. Why would you tell Patricia you're unemployed? Do you know how that makes us look? I told everyone you were consulting independently. Can you just say that from now on? Consulting independently. A nicer way of saying I had nothing. Then came the Christmas text. 3 days before the party, Dad didn't even call. Just a text message that felt like a door slamming in my face. I read it over and over, each word cutting deeper. Don't come to Christmas this year. Not we need to limit numbers. Not we're keeping it small. Just don't come. Your brother is bringing his girlfriend, and she's a VP at a tech company. As if her job title was more important than me being his daughter. We don't want you making things awkward with your situation. My situation. 6 months of unemployment, while I figured out my next strategic career move, had turned me into an embarrassment, a problem, someone who would make things awkward at their perfect Christmas party. I tried calling Mom. My hands were shaking as I pressed her contact. She answered on the 4th ring, and I could hear laughter and music in the background. They were already celebrating something. Mom, I got Dad's text about Christmas. Is this real? You don't want me to come. There was a pause, and then her voice came through, cold and matter of fact. America, you're 32 years old and unemployed. Jessica is 26 and already a VP. Do you know how embarrassing it would be to explain why our older daughter has nothing to show for herself? Tyler is bringing someone so accomplished, and we just think it's better if you sit this one out. You can come next year when you've gotten your life together. When you have something to be proud of. Something to be proud of. 12 years of career success, apparently, meant nothing now. One period of transition, and I was worthless in their eyes. Mom, I've been working since I was 16. I put myself through college. I've had a successful career. Had. She interrupted. Past tense. Look, we have to finish setting up for the party. Well, talk after the holidays. Maybe by then you'll have some good news to share. She hung up. Just like that. No, I love you. No, well, miss you. Just a dial tone and the crushing weight of rejection. Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. I made coffee and sat by my window, watching families walk by on the street below, bundled in coats, carrying presents, laughing together. My phone stayed silent until about 2 in the afternoon. Then the notifications started. Social media updates from the party. I shouldn't have looked. I knew it would hurt. But I couldn't help myself. There was Mom, wearing a red sweater, her arm around Jessica, both of them smiling at the camera. Caption. Blessed to have such wonderful people in our lives. 43 likes. Dad posted a photo of Tyler and Jessica standing by the Christmas tree. Tyler's arm around her waist, both of them looking like a magazine ad for successful young couples. Dad's caption made my stomach turn. So proud of our family and the incredible people in it. Merry Christmas to all. Our family. The incredible people in it. I wasn't in a single photo. Not one. It was like it never existed. My Aunt Linda, Dad's sister, commented on the photo. Beautiful. Where's America? No one answered her. I closed the app and set my phone face down on the coffee table. I wouldn't cry. I refused to cry anymore over people who clearly didn't value me. Instead, I sat there and let myself feel the anger, the hurt, the absolute betrayal. And then I made a decision. I was done living my life for their approval, done waiting for them to see my worth. If they couldn't celebrate me at my lowest, they didn't deserve to celebrate me at my highest. What they didn't know, what I hadn't told anyone, except my former colleague Diana, was that I had a secret. 6 months ago, right before the layoff, Diana and I had started developing something. She was a brilliant tech developer, and I was a strategic marketing mind. Together, WED created the foundation for a digital marketing platform that used artificial intelligence to level the playing field for small businesses. The big corporations had massive marketing budgets and teams. Small businesses were struggling to compete. Our platform would analyze market trends, consumer behavior, and competition in real time, then generate customized marketing strategies that small businesses could actually afford and implement. It was innovative, it was needed, and it was almost ready. The layoff had actually been a blessing in disguise. Instead of jumping into another corporate position, I'd been using my severance and savings to develop this platform with Diana. We'd been working quietly, meeting in coffee shops and co-working spaces, building something real. I hadn't told my family because, honestly, they'd never really listened to my dreams before. Tyler's ideas were always so creative and thinking outside the box. Mine were usually met with polite nods and quick subject changes. The day after Christmas, my phone rang. Diana's name lit up the screen. "Merry Christmas, America," she said, and her voice was warm, genuine. "How are you doing?" I told her everything. The text, the exclusion, the social media photos. She listened without interrupting. And when I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "They're idiots," she finally said. "Complete and total idiots. But you know what? Their loss is about to become very clear. I have news." My heart started beating faster. "What news?" "The investor meeting, the one we've been waiting for. It's confirmed, January 18th. America, these aren't small-time investors. This is Quantum Ventures. They've funded 3 startups that are now worth over $100 million each. They want to meet with us." I stood up from my couch, suddenly full of energy. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I sent them our demo last week, and they called me this morning. They want a full presentation. This is it, America. This is our shot." We spent the next 3 weeks working harder than I'd ever worked in my life. 18-hour days. Diana handled the technical demonstrations while I crafted our pitch, developed our market analysis, created projections and strategies. We practiced our presentation until we could deliver it in our sleep. My family didn't call once during those 3 weeks. Not to check on me, not to apologize. Nothing. And I didn't reach out either. I was too busy building something that mattered. January 18th arrived cold and clear. Diana and I dressed in our best professional attire and walked into the Quantum Ventures office on the 30th floor of a downtown skyscraper. The view overlooked the entire city. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the world stretched out below us. 3 investors sat across the conference table: Richard Chen, Maria Rodriguez, and James Patterson. Each of them had built and sold multiple successful companies. They were legends in the startup world. We presented for 45 minutes. Our platform, our vision, our market research. The demo ran flawlessly. Diana's technical explanation was clear and compelling. My marketing strategy showed exactly how we'd capture market share. When we finished, there was silence. Richard leaned back in his chair, looking at Maria, then at James. They seemed to have an entire conversation with just eye contact. Finally, Richard spoke. "How much funding are you looking for?" Diana and I had agreed on a number. $500,000 to start, with projections for scaling up. $500,000, I said. keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. Richard smiled. We're going to offer you something different. We don't just want to fund your platform. We want to acquire it and install you both as co-CEOs of a new subsidiary under the Quantum Ventures umbrella. Well, provide the funding, the infrastructure, the support staff. You'll maintain creative control and leadership. We're talking about a purchase price of $3.2 million for the platform, split between you two. Plus, you'll each receive a base salary of $250,000 annually, with significant equity in the subsidiary and performance bonuses. I felt dizzy. Diana grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing hard. The paperwork will take about 8 to 10 weeks to finalize, Maria added. But we'd like to start building your team immediately. We're thinking an initial staff of 15, scaling to 50 within the first year. James leaned forward. Ladies, what you've built is exactly what the market needs right now. We see this becoming a major player in the marketing tech space within 3 years. Are you ready for that? Diana and I looked at each other. We'd dreamed of maybe getting enough funding to rent a small office and hire a couple of people. This was beyond anything we'd imagined. Yes, we said together. We signed initial agreements that day. By the end of January, it was official. Diana and I were co-CEOs of Innovate Reach Marketing Solutions, a subsidiary of Quantum Ventures. We had funding. We had backing. We had everything we needed to build an empire. And my family had no idea. February and March became a blur of activity that felt like living inside a dream I was terrified to wake up from. Diana and I moved into our new office space in early February, a sleek suite on the 15th floor of a downtown building, with glass walls and modern furniture that actually made me feel like a real CEO. Our first day, we stood in the empty space, just the two of us, and Diana turned to me with tears in her eyes. We did it, America. We actually did it. I hugged her tight, both of us laughing and crying at the same time. After months of working in coffee shops and my cramped apartment, we had a real office. Our names were going on the door. We were building something that mattered. The first 2 weeks were hiring madness. Caroline Brooks became our HR director, a sharp woman in her early 40s, who'd previously worked for 2 major tech companies. She had this no-nonsense efficiency that made everything run smoothly. We hired Marcus Chen as our lead developer, bringing in 2 other tech specialists to work under him. Our marketing team started with 5 people, each one bringing unique expertise. By mid-February, we had 15 employees. Our office space that had felt so big suddenly felt full of life and energy. Morning meetings where we'd strategize, afternoon sessions where the tech team would demo new features, late nights where we'd order pizza and work together on perfecting our first major client pitch. Our platform officially launched on March 1st. We'd been quietly developing partnerships with 3 small businesses as beta testers. The results were remarkable. A local bakery saw their online orders increase by 67% in 3 weeks. A family-owned bookstore expanded their customer base by 42% in 1 month. An independent coffee roaster got picked up by 2 regional chains after our platform helped them target the right buyers. Word spread fast in the small business community. By mid-March, we had a waiting list of 73 businesses wanting to use our platform. We signed 12 major clients in 2 weeks. Real contracts, real money. The business was not just surviving but thriving beyond our projections. I was working 12 to 14-hour days, but I'd never been happier. Leading strategy sessions where my ideas mattered, making decisions that affected real people's livelihoods, watching our clients succeed because of something Diana and I built. This was what I was meant to do. My personal life transformed too. I moved out of my small apartment into a beautiful 3-bedroom townhouse in a tree-lined neighborhood. Hardwood floors, a real office space, a kitchen where I could actually cook instead of microwaving frozen meals. I invested in a professional wardrobe, pieces that made me feel confident and powerful. I got a new haircut, shoulder length with subtle highlights that made me look polished and put together. Every morning, I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize myself, not because I looked so different physically, but because I stood differently. Shoulders back, head high, eyes clear. I looked like someone who knew her worth. The entire time, my family maintained their silence. Not a single phone call, not a text, nothing. I'd check my phone sometimes. That old habit of hoping, but there was never anything from them. It hurt less as time went on. The ache dulled as I filled my life with people who actually valued me. Diana became more than a business partner. She was my closest friend. We'd have dinner together at least twice a week, talking about everything from business strategies to dating disasters to childhood dreams. She knew my whole family history, and she never once suggested I reach out to them. They don't deserve your energy, she'd say whenever the topic came up. You're building something incredible. Focus on that. I dated a little. Nothing serious. A few dinners with a lawyer named David, who was nice, but boring. Coffee with a teacher named Sarah who was sweet, but we had nothing in common. I wasn't looking for anything serious anyway. My company was my focus, my purpose. In early March, Caroline came into my office one afternoon with her tablet and her reading glasses perched on her nose. "We need to hire a junior marketing coordinator," she said. "The workload is getting too heavy for the current team." I nodded, scanning through the quarterly report on my desk. "Sounds good. What's the timeline?" "I'd like to post the position today and start reviewing applications by Monday. We could do first-round interviews by the end of next week." "Perfect. You handle the initial screening, then bring me the top candidates for final interviews." We posted the position that afternoon. By Monday morning, we had over 200 applications. The job market was competitive, and our company was getting a reputation as a great place to work. Good benefits, collaborative environment, real growth opportunities. I was drowning in back-to-back meetings for 3 straight days. We were negotiating a major contract with a restaurant chain that wanted to use our platform for all 15 of their locations. The potential revenue was significant, but the negotiations were complex. I barely had time to think about the hiring process. Thursday afternoon, Caroline knocked on my office door around 4 o'clock. I was reviewing financial projections with Diana, both of us exhausted but satisfied with what we were seeing. "Sorry to interrupt," Caroline said. "I've narrowed down the applications to the top 5 candidates for the junior coordinator position. First-round interviews are scheduled for next week, but I wanted you to review the resumes first." She handed me a manila folder. I took it, setting it on the corner of my desk. "Thanks, Caroline. I'll look through these tonight." Diana left around 6, reminding me not to stay too late. "You need sleep, partner. We have the restaurant chain meeting tomorrow at 9. I know. I'm just going to review these resumes and then head home." The office grew quiet as people left for the evening. I made myself a cup of tea in our break room, then settled back at my desk with the folder. I opened it, scanning the first resume. Strong candidate, good experience, solid references. The second resume was impressive too. Recent graduate with excellent internship experience and a clear passion for marketing. I flipped to the third resume and froze. Tyler Morgan, my brother. My younger brother, who'd been the golden child, had been dating the successful girlfriend, who'd been the reason I was banned from Christmas. Had applied for a job at my company. I read through his resume with growing disbelief. Had listed his current employment as marketing specialist at a mid-size firm downtown. I happened to know, from a mutual acquaintance's social media post 3 months ago, that he was actually a marketing assistant at that company. Specialist implied a higher-level position. He claimed to have been there for 2 years. I did the math. Had started that job in late August 2 years ago, which meant had been there about 18 months, close to 2 years, but not quite. Another exaggeration. Under skills, he listed himself as expert level in 5 different marketing platforms. I knew Tyler. He was competent, but expert level? That was a stretch. Under achievements, had written that he led a team that increased client engagement by 30%. Led a team. Tyler had been an assistant. He didn't lead teams. His cover letter was generic. Clearly a template Head sent to multiple companies. Nothing in it showed Head researched Innovate Reach, or understood what we did. He probably saw a marketing position, saw the decent salary we were offering, and applied without a second thought. What struck me most was that there was no indication he knew I was involved with this company. Innovate Reach was new enough that it wouldn't mean anything to him. We'd only been publicly operational for a few weeks, and I'd deliberately kept my professional life off personal social media. My LinkedIn was updated, but Tyler had never been connected to me there. We weren't close enough for him to follow my career. He had no idea his older sister, the family embarrassment, the one not good enough for Christmas, was the CEO of the company he was applying to. I sat back in my chair, the resume still in my hands, and felt 1,000 emotions at once. Anger, vindication, sadness, and underneath it all, a strange sense of fate. The universe had just handed me an opportunity I never could have planned. I could reject his application outright. He'd never even know I'd seen it. But that felt too easy, too invisible. I closed the folder and pulled out my phone, texting Diana. "You're not going to believe what just happened." She called me immediately, and I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" she finally asked. "I don't know yet. Part of me wants to just reject him and move on. But another part of me wants him to see exactly what you've built," Diana finished. "Wants him to see what you're worth." "Is that petty?" "No," Diana said firmly. "It's human. They treated you like you were worthless. They excluded you. They made you feel small. And now your brother is applying to work for you. I think he deserves a professional interview based on his qualifications alone. And if you happen to be the one conducting that interview, well, that's just good business practice." I smiled despite myself. "You're a bad influence. I'm the best influence. Look, you don't have to decide tonight. Sleep on it. But America, whatever you decide, I support you." I went home that night and barely slept. I kept thinking about Christmas, about that text message, about being excluded. I thought about Tyler sitting at the party, smiling with Jessica, never once wondering where his sister was. I thought about Mom's cold voice saying I had nothing to be proud of. By morning, I'd made my decision. Tyler would get an interview, a completely professional, fair interview based solely on his qualifications. I wouldn't sabotage him. I wouldn't be cruel, but I would be there, and he would see exactly who I was now. I called Caroline Friday morning. "The third candidate, Tyler Morgan. Schedule him for an interview. I want to be part of that interview." "You usually let me handle the junior positions," Caroline said, surprised. "I know, but I want to be involved in this one. Schedule it for next week sometime." "Okay. Any particular reason?" I paused. Caroline had become a trusted member of our team. She deserved honesty. "Has my brother. He has no idea I work here, much less that I'm the CEO. And based on his resume, I think he's exaggerated his qualifications. I want to see if he's actually right for the position." Caroline was quiet for a moment, then said slowly, "That's going to be quite a surprise for him." "Yes," I agreed. "It is." Caroline scheduled Tyler's interview for Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. The wait felt eternal. I went through the motions of work, meeting with clients, reviewing campaigns, making decisions. But underneath everything was this current of anticipation and anxiety. Diana checked on me constantly. "You okay?" She'd ask, and I'd nod. But we both knew this was bigger than a simple job interview. Wednesday night, I barely slept again. I kept rehearsing how it would go. What I'd say, how I'd react. I promised myself it'd be professional, fair. I wouldn't let personal history cloud my judgment. If Tyler was qualified, if he interviewed well, I'd consider him like any other candidate. But if he wasn't qualified, If Head lied on his resume, that would be his own fault, not mine. Thursday morning, I dressed in my best navy blue suit, the one that always made me feel powerful and put together. I styled my hair carefully, minimal makeup, but polished. I looked at myself in the mirror before leaving my townhouse and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked confident, successful. Exactly what Mom had said. I wasn't. I arrived at the office at 8:30. Caroline was already there, organizing the interview schedule. We had 3 candidates scheduled that day. Tyler was the second. His resume is here, Caroline said, handing me the folder. I've prepared standard interview questions. Do you want to add anything specific? Let's ask about the platforms he claims to be expert level in, I said. And I want details about that team project he claims to have led. Caroline nodded, making notes. Sounds good. Should I tell him up front who you are? Or, no, I said quickly. Introduce yourself. Conduct the first part of the interview. Then bring me in as the CEO. I want to see his natural reaction. At 9:45, our receptionist Madison buzzed Caroline's office. Tyler Morgan is here for his interview. Send him to conference room B, Caroline said. She looked at me. You ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be. I watched on the security monitor as Tyler walked through our lobby. He was wearing wrinkled khaki pants and a polo shirt that looked like it needed ironing. His hair was messy, like Head rolled out of bed 30 minutes ago. Every other candidate we'd interviewed had worn full business attire. Suits, professional dresses, polished shoes. Tyler looked like he was going to a casual barbecue. He was also 15 minutes late. Caroline met him in the lobby, shook his hand professionally, and led him to the conference room. I watched from my office, which had a window that looked into the conference space. The blinds were adjusted so I could see out, but he couldn't see in. Caroline started with basic questions. Tyler's answers were okay. Nothing special. Lots of buzzwords and corporate speak that sounded impressive but didn't really say anything concrete. When Caroline asked about his experience, he talked in vague generalities. I've worked on numerous campaigns across various platforms, he said, leaning back in his chair like he was completely relaxed. My expertise is really in understanding market dynamics and consumer psychology. Caroline made notes. Can you give me a specific example of a campaign you worked on and what results it achieved? Tyler hesitated. Well, there was this one project where we increased engagement by like 30% or something. It was a big win for the team. You mentioned on your resume that you led that team. How many people were on it? Another hesitation. It was a collaborative effort. Maybe 5 or 6 people? I was really the driving force behind the strategy, though. I watched Caroline's face remain neutral, but I could tell she was noticing the same things I was. Vague answers, hesitation, lack of concrete details. Your resume lists expert-level proficiency in 5 different marketing platforms, Caroline continued. Let's talk about HubSpot. What aspects of that platform do you use most frequently? Tyler shifted in his seat. Oh, all the standard features. The email marketing stuff, social media integration, analytics, all the usual things. Can you walk me through how you'd set up a workflow automation for a lead nurturing campaign? Tyler's face went slightly pale. Well, you'd go into the settings and configure the parameters based on the specific requirements of the campaign. He was clearly making it up as he went along. If he was truly expert level, he'd be able to walk through the process step by step without hesitation. Caroline asked a few more technical questions. Tyler fumbled through the answers, using more buzzwords to cover his lack of actual knowledge. Then came my favorite moment. Caroline asked about his current position. You're listed as a marketing specialist at Morrison & Associates. How long have you been in that role? About 2 years, Tyler said confidently. And what are your primary responsibilities? I handle client accounts, develop marketing strategies, oversee campaign implementation, pretty much the full scope of marketing operations. I pulled up my phone and did a quick search. Morrison and Associates website had a staff directory. There was Tyler, listed as marketing assistant. His bio said Head joined the team in August 2 years ago. It was now mid-March. 18 months, not 2 years. And definitely assistant, not specialist. Caroline glanced toward my office window. That was my cue. I stood up, smoothed my suit jacket, and walked toward the conference room. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm and professional. I opened the door and stepped inside. Tyler, Caroline said, standing up, I'd like to introduce you to our CEO. I walked around the table, extending my hand professionally. Hello, I'm America Morgan, co-CEO and founder of Innovate Reach. The color drained from Tyler's face so fast I thought he might pass out. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. No sound came out. His eyes went wide, and he stared at me like I was a ghost. I kept my hand extended, waiting. Finally, he seemed to remember how to function, and stood up abruptly, nearly knocking his chair over. His handshake was limp and sweaty. America, he finally managed to say. I didn't. What are you? I'm the CEO, I repeated calmly, taking my seat at the table. Caroline sat down too, her pen poised over her notepad. I like to be involved in our hiring process. Shall we continue? Tyler sat back down slowly, still staring at me like id appeared from another dimension. You're a CEO? Since when? I thought you were unemployed. I was between positions while building this company, I said, my voice perfectly even. Now, let's talk about your qualifications. I have some questions about your resume. For the next 20 minutes, I asked pointed questions about every item on his resume. Every exaggeration, every vague claim, every inflated title. Tyler stumbled through his answers, sweating visibly, his confidence completely shattered. Your resume says you led a team that increased client engagement by 30%, I said, looking directly at him. Can you tell me specifically what your role was in that project? Well, I was part of the team. I contributed ideas and helped with implementation. But you didn't lead the team. I mean, not officially. But I was really involved. So when you wrote led a team on your resume, that was inaccurate. Tyler's face turned red. It was more of a collaborative leadership situation. And your current title at Morrison and Associates? Your resume lists you as a marketing specialist, but their website lists you as a marketing assistant. Can you explain that discrepancy? I've been doing specialist level work, so I thought. But your actual title is assistant. Yes, he admitted quietly. I went through 3 other exaggerations on his resume. Each time, Tyler had to admit had inflated his experience or his role. By the end, he looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Caroline asked the final standard question. Do you have any questions for us about the position or the company? Tyler looked at me desperately. America, I didn't know you worked here. I didn't know you. I mean, when did all this happen? How did you become a CEO? You were unemployed at Thanksgiving. Those aren't questions about the position, I said calmly. Do you have any questions about the actual job you're applying for? He shook his head mutely. I stood up, signaling the interview was over. Thank you for your time today, Tyler. Well, be in touch with our decision. Tyler stood too, but he didn't move toward the door. You're not actually going to reject me because of family stuff, right? That would be illegal. Discrimination or something. I could sue. The room went very quiet. Caroline's pen stopped moving. I looked at my brother, this person I'd grown up with, who'd been loved and celebrated while I'd been excluded and dismissed. Head just threatened to sue me because he knew Head bombed the interview. You're being rejected, I said, my voice sharp and clear. Because you're unqualified, you lied on your resume, and you showed up late and unprepared to a professional interview. But thank you for the legal threat. Caroline, please document that for our records. Tyler's face went from red to white. He opened his mouth to say something, then seemed to think better of it. He grabbed his messenger bag and walked out of the conference room without another word. I stood there, shaking slightly, as his footsteps echoed down the hallway. The front door opened and closed. He was gone. Caroline looked at me with something like awe. That was the most professional takedown I've ever witnessed. I sat back down heavily. I feel like I'm going to throw up. You did the right thing, Caroline said firmly. He wasn't qualified. The family connection doesn't change that fact. And the threat to sue, that was completely inappropriate. Diana appeared in the doorway moments later. She'd been in her office but had clearly been waiting for the interview to end. I heard raised voices at the end. You okay? He threatened to sue if I rejected him, I said. And then I started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when a situation is so absurd, you can't process it any other way. He actually threatened to sue me. Diana came in and sat next to me. What an idiot. He had no idea about any of this, about the company, about what I've built. He just saw a marketing job and applied. And now he knows, Diana said. Now he knows exactly what you're worth. The rest of the day passed in a blur. We interviewed the other two candidates. Both were much better qualified and professional than Tyler. We ended up offering the position to a recent graduate named Ashley, who had excellent references and a genuine passion for what our company did. I went home that evening exhausted. I changed into comfortable clothes, made myself dinner, and tried to relax. But my mind kept replaying the interview. Tyler's shocked face, his fumbling answers, his desperate threat at the end. Part of me felt vindicated. Had seen what I built. He knew now that I wasn't a failure. But another part of me just felt sad. This was my brother. We used to be close when we were kids. When did everything become so broken? My phone sat on the coffee table, silent. I knew what was coming next. Tyler would tell our parents, and then the real storm would hit. I didn't have to wait long. The first message came 2 hours after Tyler's interview. A text from a number I didn't recognize. How could you do that to me, you petty bitch? This is so typical of you, always jealous. I blocked the number. Tyler had apparently gotten a new phone, or was texting from someone else's device. Then my phone started ringing. Mom's name lit up the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Voicemail again. On the third call, I answered. How dare you? Mom said before I could even say hello. Her voice was shaking with rage. How dare you humiliate your brother like that? Tyler just told us what you did. You had him come in for an interview you knew he wouldn't get just to embarrass him. That's not what happened, I said calmly. Don't lie to me, America. He said you grilled him about his resume, tried to make him look stupid in front of your HR person, and then rejected him because of some family grudge. This is unbelievable. Even for you, Mom. He applied for a job at my company. I didn't seek him out. He had no idea I worked there. I gave him the same interview I'd give any candidate, and he wasn't qualified. He exaggerated his experience, showed up late and unprepared, and when I told him we weren't moving forward, he threatened to sue me. He did not threaten to sue you. Tyler wouldn't do that. He absolutely did. My HR director documented it. Mom, his resume was full of lies. He claimed to be a specialist when he's an assistant. We're doing this for your own good, Mom said. You needed motivation to get your life together. And clearly it worked, since apparently, you're some big-shot CEO now, though I find it hard to believe you went from unemployed to CEO in a few months. What kind of company is this, really? The dismissal in her voice. The automatic assumption that I must have done something questionable, or my success must not be real. It cut deeper than I expected. Goodbye, Mom, I said, and hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. She called 4 more times that evening. I blocked her number. Then came the text messages from Dad. Long paragraphs about family loyalty, about how I'd always been jealous of Tyler, about how I was being vindictive and small, about how they expected better from me. I didn't respond. What was the point? Tyler started posting on social media, nothing directly about me, but vague posts about betrayal and family that everyone could read between the lines. Some people get a little power and forget where they came from. 23 likes, including from my parents, when your own blood stabs you in the back for no reason. 15 comments of support, cousins and family friends asking if he was okay. My Aunt Helen, Dad's younger sister, sent me a private message. "Sweetie, what's going on? Your parents are saying you rejected Tyler from a job out of spite. That doesn't sound like you. Can we talk?" I called her that evening and told her everything. The Christmas exclusion, the months of silence, Tyler's interview, his lies on the resume, his threat to sue. I told her about building the company, about becoming a CEO, about all of it. When I finished, Aunt Helen was quiet for a long moment. "Oh, honey," she finally said, her voice soft and sad. "I didn't know about Christmas. I didn't know they excluded you. Your mother told everyone you were busy with a project and couldn't make it." Of course she did. America. What they did was wrong. So wrong. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Building a company from nothing? Becoming a CEO at 32? That's incredible. Your parents should be celebrating you, not attacking you. Her words made my eyes fill with tears. "Thank you," I whispered. "I'm going to talk to your father," Aunt Helen said. "Hez my baby brother, and I love him, but Hez being an idiot. So is your mother. Give me a few days." Over the next week, the bombardment continued but through other channels since I'd blocked Mom and Dad's numbers. My cousin Jennifer sent me a long message about how family should stick together. My Uncle Dave called to tell me I was being unreasonable. Family friends I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my choices. Through it all, I focused on work. We signed 2 major new clients, businesses that would bring in significant revenue. Our team was gelling beautifully, everyone working together with genuine enthusiasm. Ashley, our new junior coordinator, was doing excellent work, proving I'd made the right hiring choice. I was featured in a local business magazine for a piece about entrepreneurs to watch. They interviewed me about Innovate Reach, about my vision, about what made our company different. The article came out in late March with my photo on the cover, wearing my navy suit, standing in our office with the city skyline behind me through the windows. The headline read, "America Morgan, Revolutionizing Marketing for Small Businesses." The magazine came out on a Wednesday. By Thursday, several extended family members had seen it. By Friday, my phone was exploding again with messages, but these were different. "Aunt Helen saw the magazine. You look beautiful and so professional. So proud of you." My cousin Marcus, who I'd always gotten along with. "Dude, CEO at 32? That's incredible. Congrats." Even some family friends were reaching out with genuine congratulations and pride. But still, nothing from my parents. Still nothing that resembled an apology. I threw myself deeper into work. If they couldn't see my worth, it'd build something so undeniable that their opinions wouldn't matter anymore. On Saturday morning in late March, I was home working on a presentation for an upcoming board meeting. I'd learned to love weekend work when it was for something I was passionate about. My townhouse was quiet, sun streaming through the windows, coffee at my elbow. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I stood up from my home office and walked to the front door, looking through the peephole. My heart stopped. Mom and Dad's car was in my driveway. Both of them were standing on my front porch. Dad looked angry, his jaw set and his shoulders tense. Mom's arms were crossed over her chest, her expression hard. For a moment, I considered not answering, just letting them stand there until they gave up and left. But I was tired of running, tired of being afraid of confrontation. I'd built a multi-million-dollar company. I'd become a CEO. I'd proven my worth to myself and to everyone who mattered. I could handle my parents, I opened the door. "We need to talk," Dad said immediately. And before I could respond, he pushed past me into my house. Mom followed, her eyes scanning my entryway, taking in the expensive artwork I'd recently purchased, the polished hardwood floors, the chandelier hanging in the foyer. I closed the door and turned to face them, keeping my voice steady. "You could have called first. You blocked our numbers," Mom said sharply. "And you wouldn't answer when we used other phones. You left us no choice." Dad had walked into my living room, looking around at my furniture, my decor, the professional photos on the walls from company events, and the magazine feature. His face was a mixture of anger and something else. Surprise? Maybe? Or confusion. "Nice place," he said, but his tone made it sound like an accusation. "Looks expensive." "I work hard," I said simply. He turned to face me fully, and his expression hardened again. "You're going to fix this right now, America. You're going to call Tyler and offer him that job. Or I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." Mom stepped up beside him, presenting a united front. "You've clearly done very well for yourself. Which makes what you did to Tyler even worse. You've got all this success, this big fancy company, and you can't even help your own brother? What kind of family does that? What kind of sister does that?" I felt the old familiar hurt trying to surface. The desperate need for their approval, their pride, their love. But underneath it was something stronger now. Anger. Real. Burning anger. "What kind of family?" I repeated, my voice low and dangerous. "Let me tell you about family. Family doesn't ban you from Christmas because you're unemployed. Family doesn't tell you that you're an embarrassment. Family doesn't go 4 months without checking if you're even okay. Family doesn't erase you from photos and pretend you don't exist. So don't you dare stand in my house and lecture me about family." Dad's face flushed red. "We were tough on you because you needed it. You needed motivation. And look, it worked. You got off your butt and made something of yourself." I was always making something of myself. My voice was rising now, years of frustration pouring out. "I worked 2 jobs to put myself through college while you paid for Tyler's apartment. I built a 12-year career with barely any acknowledgement from either of you. When I was laid off, I wasn't lazy or unmotivated. I was strategic. I was building this company. But you couldn't see that because you were too busy celebrating Tyler's mediocre girlfriend to care about your own daughter. Don't you dare talk about Jessica like that," Mom snapped. "Jessica broke up with Tyler 2 weeks after I rejected his job application." I shot back. "Did you know that?" She realized he'd been using her success to inflate his own image. She saw who he really was. "But you never saw who I really was. You never even tried." Mom took a step forward, her finger pointing at me. "You're being ungrateful. After everything we sacrificed to raise you, to give you opportunities, we put a roof over your head, food on the table, paid for things you needed. And this is how you repay us? By humiliating your brother? By turning your back on this family?" Something in me cracked. Not broke, but cracked in a way that let light through. Clarity. "You did the basic requirements of being parents," I said slowly. "You provided food and shelter. Congratulations. That's the bare minimum. But being a parent is more than that. It's supporting your kids even when they're struggling. It's being proud of them for who they are, not just what they achieve. It's showing up, consistently, with love that isn't conditional on success or status." Dad's jaw clenched. "We did show up. We were there." "You were there for Tyler," I corrected. "You've always been there for Tyler. But for me, I had to earn every scrap of approval. And even then, it was never enough. And the moment I didn't look successful enough to parade around at your Christmas party, you tossed me aside." "That's not fair," Mom said, but her voice wavered slightly. "Isn't it?" I looked between them. "Tell me, Mom, Dad, did either of you even wonder how I was doing at Christmas? Did you think about me at all?" Or were you too busy showing off Tyler's successful girlfriend to remember you had a daughter who was spending the holiday alone? The silence that followed was deafening. Neither of them answered. Neither of them could look me in the eye. Dad rallied, his voice getting louder. This isn't about Christmas anymore. This is about you refusing to help your brother when you clearly have the means to do so. If you don't hire Tyler, you'll have no family. We won't be a part of your life. You'll be cut off. Is that what you want? The threat hung in the air between us. This was it. The ultimatum. Choose Tyler, choose them, or lose the family entirely. A year ago, 6 months ago, maybe even 3 months ago, that threat would have destroyed me. I would have caved. I would have done anything to keep them in my life, even at the cost of my own dignity and self-respect. But I wasn't that person anymore. I looked at my parents, really looked at them, and I saw them clearly for the first time. They weren't monsters. They weren't evil. They were just flawed people who'd made terrible choices, who'd hurt me deeply, and who still couldn't see what they'd done wrong. I walked to the side table where my phone was charging and picked it up. "You're right," I said calmly. "This does need to be fixed with a phone call." My parents' faces shifted. Dad's expression turned triumphant. Mom's shoulders relaxed slightly. They thought I was about to give in. I dialed a number I had saved under favorites. It rang twice, then a familiar voice answered. "Hi, David," I said, putting the phone on speaker so my parents could hear every word. "I need you to draft a cease and desist letter. My parents and brother are harassing me about employment decisions and have made threats against me. I need documentation that I've formally asked them to stop contacting me about business matters." The triumph on Dad's face morphed into shock, then rage. Mom's mouth dropped open. "Are you threatening us?" Dad's voice was almost a roar. I kept my eyes on them, my voice steady, as I gave David, my company lawyer, the details, names, dates, the specifics of the harassment, Tyler's threat to sue, their ultimatum just now. David asked clarifying questions. I answered each one professionally, like this was just another business matter. When I finished, David said he'd have the letter drafted by Monday morning and would send it certified mail. "Thank you, David," I said, and ended the call. The silence in my living room was absolute. My parents stood frozen, staring at me like they didn't recognize me. "You need to leave," I said quietly. "Now. And don't come back, unless you're ready to apologize and actually be a family, not a family that uses love as leverage or success as a measuring stick for worth. A real family." Dad found his voice first. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. You're going to regret this." "Maybe," I agreed. "But it's my choice to make. Just like it was your choice to exclude me from Christmas. Just like it was your choice to treat me like I was worthless. Choices have consequences, Dad. You taught me that. Now please leave." Mom looked like she wanted to say something, but Dad grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. They left without another word, the door slamming behind them. I stood in my quiet living room, shaking from head to toe. My legs felt weak, and I sat down heavily on my couch. It just told my parents to leave. It just had a lawyer draft a cease and desist letter against my own family. And somehow, despite the fear and sadness and shock, I felt lighter than I had in months. The next few days were strange. I kept expecting to feel worse, to be drowning in guilt or regret, but mostly I just felt exhausted and, oddly, free. The cease and desist letter was delivered on Tuesday. David called to confirm both my parents and Tyler had received their copies. "They can't contact you about business matters or make threats," he explained. "If they do, we have grounds for a restraining order. But America, this is your family. Are you sure this is what you want?" "I'm sure," I said. "I need boundaries, clear ones." Work became my sanctuary again. Diana and I were in negotiations with a national restaurant chain that wanted to implement our platform across 50 locations. The deal would be the biggest our company had landed. potentially worth over $2 million in the first year alone. I poured everything into that negotiation. 14-hour days, weekend strategy sessions, refining our pitch until it was perfect. The presentation was scheduled for mid-April, and I was determined to nail it. Marcus, the architect I'd been casually dating, noticed the change in me. We'd been seeing each other for a few weeks, nothing serious, but he was kind and steady. Over dinner one night, he asked gently, "You doing okay? You seem different." More focused, but also more distant. I told him about the confrontation with my parents, about the letter, about all of it. He listened without judgment, and when I finished, he just reached across the table and took my hand. "That took courage," he said simply. "Standing up for yourself like that. I'm sorry they hurt you, but I'm glad you're not letting them keep hurting you." His support meant more than I could express. For the first time in my life, I was surrounding myself with people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could do for them or how successful I looked on paper. The restaurant chain presentation happened on April 15th. Diana and I walked into their corporate headquarters wearing our best suits, carrying our carefully prepared materials, and delivered the presentation of our lives. We showed them data, case studies, projections. We demonstrated the platform live, showing exactly how it would integrate with their existing systems. The CEO of the chain, a sharp woman in her 50s named Patricia Henderson, asked tough questions. We answered every single one with confidence and precision. At the end, she looked at her executive team, then back at us. "When can you start?" We signed the contract that day, $2.3 million for the first year, with options for expansion. It was the validation our company needed, proof that what we built was valuable and scalable. Diana and I celebrated that night with our entire team. We rented out a small restaurant, bought champagne, and toasted to our success. Looking around at the people who'd worked so hard to make Innovate reach real, I felt a swell of gratitude and pride. This was my family now. These people who showed up every day, who believed in what we were building, who celebrated victories and weathered challenges together. But the absence of my biological family still ached sometimes, usually late at night when I was alone with my thoughts. 6 weeks after the confrontation, Aunt Helen called me. "Don't hang up," she said immediately. "I'm not calling to lecture you or take sides. I just wanted you to know I've been talking to your father. A lot. And your mother too, though she's being more stubborn about the whole thing." "Okay," I said carefully. "Your dad is struggling, honey. He won't admit it to you. But I see it." I told him exactly what I think of how he treated you at Christmas. I told him he was wrong, that they both were wrong, and I've been showing him articles about your company, about your success. I made him read that magazine feature 3 times. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of something. Hope, maybe. Or just curiosity. "Has he said anything?" I asked. "Not much. You know your father. Stubborn as a mule, but I see it in his eyes. He's starting to realize what he lost, what he threw away. Give him time, America. I'm working on him. I'm not holding my breath, Aunt Helen. I know, and I don't blame you, but I wanted you to know that not everyone in this family thinks you're the bad guy. In fact, most of us are on your side. Your cousin Marcus reached out to several other family members. There's been a lot of talking going on. Your parents' version of events isn't holding up to scrutiny." That conversation gave me a strange mix of comfort and pain. Comfort that others saw the truth. Pain that it took all this drama for anyone to really look at what had happened. May arrived with warming weather and new growth everywhere. Our company continued to thrive. We hired 20 more people and moved to a larger office space on the 23rd floor with even better views. My personal life was settling into something that felt stable and good. Marcus and I had gotten more serious, and I found myself genuinely happy when I was with him. On a Tuesday evening in mid-May, I was at the office late working on quarterly reports when Caroline knocked on my door. She looked uncomfortable, which immediately put me on alert. "There's someone here to see you," she said carefully. "No appointment. He says he's your father." My stomach dropped. "Did you tell him I was here?" "Not yet. I wanted to check with you first. Do you want me to send him away?" I sat there for a long moment, torn. Part of me wanted to refuse, to maintain the boundary I'd set, but another part, the part that still remembered being a little girl who idolized her dad, wanted to know what he had to say. "It's okay," I finally said. "Send him in." Caroline nodded and left. A minute later, my office door opened, and Dad walked in. He looked different, older, somehow. The confident swagger he usually carried was gone. He stood in my doorway uncertainly, looking around at my office, at my name on the wall in elegant letters, at the photos of me with my team, with clients, at industry events, at the awards we'd already won displayed on a shelf, at the view of the city spread out behind me through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Can I sit?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. He sat down slowly, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly. We looked at each other across my desk, and the silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, he spoke. "Your mother and I have been talking, and your aunt gave me an earful. More than once. And Tyler admitted some things. About his resume. About the interview. He said it was fair, that you gave him a real chance, and he blew it." I didn't say anything, just waited. Dad's voice was rough when he continued. "I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you. Really seeing you. I saw Tyler as the one who needed help, who needed support and encouragement. And you were always so capable, so strong, so independent. I thought I was being a good father by pushing you to be tough, to handle things on your own." He paused, struggling with his next words. "But I wasn't there when you needed me to just be proud of you, when you needed me to show up, not with conditions or expectations, just with love. I failed at that. I failed you." Tears were building behind my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I look around this office," Dad continued, his voice breaking slightly, "and I see what you built. By yourself. Without our help, without our support, maybe even in spite of us. You became this incredible person, this successful businesswoman, this leader. And instead of being there to celebrate with you, instead of being proud..." He stopped, covering his face with his hands for a moment. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. "I banned you from Christmas, America. My own daughter. I told you that you weren't good enough to come to a family party. And then I didn't even think about how you must have felt, spending that day alone. I was so focused on impressing Tyler's girlfriend, on looking like we had this perfect, successful family, that I forgot what family actually means." A tear rolled down his cheek, and he didn't bother wiping it away. "I can't take it back. The things we said, the way we treated you, missing Christmas. That's done. That happened. And I know words can't fix that kind of hurt. But I'm here. And I'm asking if maybe, someday, we could try again. I want to know my daughter. The real you. Not the version I created in my head. Not the one I tried to mold you into. Just you." My own tears were falling now, silent streams down my face. "It's going to take time, Dad. A lot of time. You hurt me in ways I'm still processing. And it's not just about Christmas. It's years of feeling like I was never quite good enough, never quite as loved as Tyler." "I know," he said, nodding. "I know. And am not asking for immediate forgiveness. Am not even sure I deserve eventual forgiveness. But I'm asking for a chance. However long it takes, whatever it takes, I want to do better. I want to be the father you deserved all along." We sat there in my office, as the sun set outside, painting the sky in oranges and purples. Eventually, I spoke. "I need to see real change, Dad. Not just words. Actions. Consistently. I need to know that you value me for who I am, not for what I achieve or how successful I look. And I need you to understand that Tyler and I are different people, with different paths, and that's okay. You can't keep putting him on a pedestal and expecting me to compete for scraps of approval. I understand, Dad said. I promise I'll do better. Well, do better. Your mom, she's having a harder time with this. She's still processing, but she's listening. She's starting to see things differently too. I need an apology from her too, I said firmly. A real one. And from Tyler. You'll get them, Dad promised. Tyler feels terrible about everything. Has been in therapy, actually, working through some things. And he wanted me to tell you he's sorry for how he acted in the interview and after. He knows he screwed up. Dad stood up to leave, then turned back at the door. His voice was thick with emotion when he spoke. I'm proud of you, America. I should have said that years ago. Decades ago. I should have said it every single day, but I'm saying it now. And I mean it with everything in me. I'm so incredibly proud of who you are and what you've built. You're remarkable. After he left, I sat in my office for a long time, watching the city lights come on as darkness fell. The conversation hadn't fixed everything. Years of hurt don't heal in one conversation. But it was a start. A real start. The months that followed were a careful dance of rebuilding trust. Dad called once a week, always respectful of my time, always genuine in his interest. He asked about my company, and actually listened to the answers. He asked about my life, my dreams, what I was working toward. Mom took longer. It was July before she finally called, her voice stiff and formal. America, I owe you an apology. Your father has made it very clear that we failed you, and I need to acknowledge my role in that. I was wrong. About Christmas. About how we treated you. About everything. I'm sorry. It wasn't the most heartfelt apology, but it was a start. Over time, her calls became more frequent and more genuine. She started asking about my life, with real curiosity, rather than judgment. Tyler sent a long email in August. He detailed everything he'd been working through in therapy, acknowledging how entitled he'd been, how he'd taken advantage of our parents' favoritism, how he'd let jealousy and insecurity drive his behavior. He apologized for the resume lies, for the threat to sue, for the social media posts. He ended with, "You were always the one I looked up to, even when I pretended I didn't. I'm sorry I never told you that. I'm sorry I never had your back when I should have. I hope someday you can forgive me." I wrote back a week later. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement, an opening for future conversation. Innovate Reach continued to grow beyond our wildest projections. By September, we had 75 employees and were signing clients faster than we could keep up with. Diana and I were featured in a national business publication, a full spread about young female entrepreneurs changing the industry. The recognition was gratifying, but what mattered more was the impact we were having. Small businesses thriving because of our platform. Jobs created, dreams achieved. Marcus and I moved in together in October. A decision that felt right and natural. His steady presence, his unconditional support, his way of seeing me clearly without judgment. It was healing in ways I hadn't known I needed. On Thanksgiving, almost a full year after the disastrous holiday that had started everything, I hosted dinner at my townhouse. It was small, just me, Marcus, Diana, and her husband, Aunt Helen. And yes, my parents. It was awkward at first. Mom brought a dish she'd made and fussed about where to put it. Dad stood in my living room looking uncomfortable, like he still wasn't sure he was really welcome. But as the evening progressed, something shifted. We sat around my dining table, and I asked everyone to share something they were grateful for. When it came to Dad, he looked directly at me and said, "I'm grateful for second chances, for daughters who are strong enough to demand better, for lessons learned, even when they come late." Mom added quietly, "I'm grateful for family. Real family, not the picture-perfect version I tried to create." but the messy, complicated, real version, where people make mistakes and hopefully learn from them. Tyler called during dinner, video chatting from where he was having Thanksgiving with friends. Head moved to a different city for a fresh start, a new job that Head earned honestly. He looked healthier, happier. "Hey, America," he said, his smile genuine. "I'm grateful for sisters who know their worth and aren't afraid to stand up for themselves, even when it means standing up to family." After dinner, Dad and I ended up in my kitchen doing dishes together. It was a simple, domestic moment, but it felt significant. "Your mother and I signed up for family therapy," he said quietly, handing me a plate to dry. "We're working on understanding how we failed you and Tyler in different ways, how we created competition instead of support, how we tied love to achievement." "That's good, Dad," I said. "Really good. I know we can't undo the past," he continued. "But I want you to know, I'm committed to doing better, not just saying it, but showing it. Every day." I looked at him. This man who'd hurt me so deeply, but who was genuinely trying to change. "I can see that, Dad. And I appreciate it." On Christmas Eve, we had another small gathering, this time at my parents' house. At my request, I wanted to reclaim that space, to create new memories that could coexist with the painful ones. We didn't recreate the big party from last year. It was just immediate family: me, Marcus, Tyler, who'd flown in for the holidays, Mom, Dad, and Aunt Helen. The tree was smaller, the dinner was simpler, but the laughter was real. The conversations were genuine. At one point, I found myself standing by the Christmas tree, looking at a photo on the mantel. It was from last year's party. Tyler and Jessica, Mom and Dad, everyone smiling. I wasn't in it because I hadn't been there. Dad came up beside me, seeing what I was looking at. Without a word, he took the frame, walked to a drawer, and put it away. Then he picked up his phone, called everyone together, and took a new photo. All of us, crowded together by the tree, Marcus' arm around me, Mom and Dad on either side, Tyler making a goofy face, Aunt Helen laughing. "This is the photo that goes on the mantel now," Dad said firmly. "This is our family." Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed except me and Marcus, we sat in my parents' living room with just the tree lights on, talking quietly. "A year ago, I was alone on Christmas," I said softly, "completely alone, and I thought that was the worst thing that could happen. Being excluded, being told I wasn't good enough." Marcus squeezed my hand. "And now I understand it was the catalyst I needed. Being excluded forced me to stop seeking their approval. It pushed me to build something for myself, to prove to myself that I was worthy, not to prove it to them. I built a company, yes, but more than that. I built a life that reflects my values. I surrounded myself with people who see my worth without conditions." I looked around the room, at the home I grew up in that felt different now, not erased of pain, but transformed by growth. "They're trying," I continued. "Really trying, and I'm letting them back in, slowly, carefully. But even if they weren't, even if they'd never apologized or changed, it'd still be okay. Because I finally know my worth isn't dependent on their approval." "It never was." Marcus kissed my forehead gently. "You're pretty remarkable, you know that." I smiled. "I'm learning to believe it." The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke up in my old childhood bedroom, where I was staying for the holiday. I checked my phone and saw a text from Diana. "Merry Christmas, partner. Checking our company email because I'm a workaholic, and guess what just came through? IBM wants to talk to us about implementing our platform company-wide. Company-wide. We're talking potential 8-figure deal." I sat up in bed, reading the message again to make sure I wasn't dreaming. 8 figures. IBM, my company, the one I built when my family thought I was a failure, was about to negotiate with one of the biggest corporations in the world. I forwarded the email to Diana. "Well, talk strategy after the holidays. But yes to all of it." Downstairs, I found Mom in the kitchen making coffee. She turned when she heard me, and for a moment we just looked at each other. "Merry Christmas, America," she said, and there was warmth in her voice that had been missing for so long. "Merry Christmas, Mom." She poured me a cup of coffee without asking, remembered exactly how I took it, and handed it to me. "Your father told me about his conversation with you, about wanting to be better. I want you to know I'm committed to that too. I know I was harder on you than Tyler, and that wasn't fair. I know I made you feel like you had to be perfect to earn love, and that was wrong. I'm working on it. I hope you can be patient with me while I figure out how to be a better mother." "I can be patient," I said, "as long as I see real effort." She nodded. "You'll see it, I promise." The rest of the day was peaceful. We opened presents. I'd gotten Dad a leather journal with "Proud Father" embossed on the cover and a note inside, "For recording moments with your daughter." Mom got a framed photo of just the two of us that Marcus had taken at Thanksgiving, both of us laughing at something silly. Tyler got a gift card and a card that said simply, "For fresh starts." They'd gotten me thoughtful gifts too. Nothing extravagant, but personal. A book I'd mentioned wanting to read, a donation in my name to a charity supporting women entrepreneurs, a handwritten letter from Dad listing 52 things he loved about me, one for each week he wanted to rebuild our relationship. As I drove home that evening, Marcus beside me, I thought about the journey of the past year, from that devastating text message telling me not to come to Christmas, to building a multi-million-dollar company, to confronting my family and setting boundaries, to slowly, carefully, letting them back in on my terms. I'd learned that being underestimated isn't a disadvantage if you use it as fuel. Not to prove others wrong, but to prove yourself right. I'd learned that love without conditions is the only kind worth having. I'd learned that family is complicated and messy, and sometimes the people who love you can still hurt you deeply. But healing is possible when people are willing to see their mistakes and do the hard work of change. Most importantly, I'd learned that my worth was never dependent on being invited to that party. I was always enough. It just took losing their approval to finally, truly believe it. My phone buzzed with a text from Diana. "I'm so glad we built this together. Here's to next year being even better than this one." I smiled and typed back, "Here's to us, and everything we're building." As we pulled into my driveway, I looked at my townhouse, my home, filled with furniture I chose, and art I loved, and memories I created. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work and start preparing for that IBM meeting. I'd continue building my company, mentoring my team, making a difference in the business world. But tonight, I was just going to be grateful for the journey, for the lessons, for the person I'd become through all of it. Success isn't measured by who celebrates you at their parties. It's measured by whether you can celebrate yourself, authentically and completely, with or without anyone else's approval. And I finally could. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been excluded or underestimated by the people who were supposed to support you most? How did you handle it? Did you let it break you? Or did you use it as fuel to build something better? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might inspire someone else who's going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and reminds them they're not alone in their struggles. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We share stories every week about real people facing real challenges and finding their way through with courage and grace. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's struggling with family expectations, or feeling underestimated, or wondering if they're enough just as they are. Sometimes, we all need a reminder that our worth isn't determined by other people's opinions. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. I hope you find the courage to know your worth, set boundaries when you need to, and build a life that reflects your true value. You deserve to be celebrated, not just at Christmas parties, but every single day. Take care of yourselves. And remember that you are always, always enough.